Hello my dear friends, in this video you will witness the full story of the most heinous crime that occurred in the Bear Brook Forest that shook the United States of America. On November 10, 1985, while a hunter was walking in the Bear Brook Forest in the state of New Hampshire in the United States of America, he stopped for a moment, staring at a metal barrel like those used to store oil. The barrel was standing and open. The barrel itself was not an interesting thing, but its presence in the forest like this aroused his curiosity to take a look at it. Perhaps he wished he had not done so, because the shocking surprise began from that look. The barrel was not empty, but he was able to distinguish skeletons inside it wrapped in plastic bags. For a moment, he thought it was a timely foreplay that belonged to an animal, but when he examined them closely and closely, he realized with certainty that they were human skeletons without the slightest doubt. He immediately informed the police, who came and the barrel was taken to the hospital to reveal what was in it. After examination and analysis, doctors determined that the skeletons found belonged to a girl aged between 8 to 10 years old and to a woman aged 23 to 33 years old. It was confirmed that they were murdered between 1977 and 1981, and from here the search began among all the missing people recorded in the records for people similar to them, but that search did not lead to any results. Years passed until the story was almost forgotten, but by will, another accident occurred by another coincidence, and after 15 full years. On May 9, 2000, another person found a second barrel in the same area. The barrel also contained two bodies, but there was a painful surprise that no one had imagined when it was revealed that the bodies were those of two girls. DNA analyses proved that the woman whose body they discovered 15 years ago was the mother of one of the two girls, in addition to the child who was with her. But the second child did not know her identity, and of course, according to the analysis, she had no relationship with them at all. The case was reopened and the police carried out many other investigations, but they reached a dead end, as they were unable to identify the bodies despite the continued search for 20 years, but without any significant result. Rebecca Heath. A 26-year-old girl, who lived in a broken family and left her family home at the age of 19 to work as a librarian in a research librarian in a city in the state of Connecticut. Rebecca spent most of her time trying to uncover the identity of the bodies of unidentified people, and over time she gained great experience in the subject. In an interview conducted with her, Rebecca expressed the reason for her interest in these cases, as she said that at any moment she could be a corpse waiting for someone to recognize her. One night in 2010, Rebecca was watching a program about the story of the Brook Forest barrel corpses. Such programs had spread in the United States in the hope that they would make progress in identifying a number of unknown bodies that had been found over the past years, but the case of the barrels Brook Forest greatly attracted her attention, and she felt great sympathy for the story of the murdered mother, her two children, and the unknown child. At the same moment, she had made the decision to delve into the Brook barrels case, in the hope that it would bring justice to those bodies that had lain in that place for years. Rebecca had a strategy to follow, sufficient experience to chart her path, and all the time possible, especially since she was not married and had nothing to occupy her. The end of the thread was on the internet. Rebecca spent hundreds of hours across evenings and weekends reading and scanning genealogy website messages dating back decades looking for posts from people searching for long-lost relatives. Rebecca searched the files of the four victims for any leads linking them to missing persons, and years later she created a list of names of people who might be linked to the four victims. Then she started searching for the names she identified, and did any of them appear or did they recognize one of the bodies that they had previously reported about? For 8 years, Rebecca continued to follow the threads of the case with enthusiasm and without getting tired, despite not reaching any results. In 2018, there was a very popular podcast in America called The Bear Brook Murders. She was following it with interest, and recording every note of what was being said in it, when suddenly, in one of its episodes, something very important related to the case of the four victims was shown. Terry Rasmussen. A criminal was imprisoned on charges of murder and mutilation of the body of his friend, and he died in 2010 behind bars. The interesting thing is that DNA tests proved that he was the father of one of the 3 children killed in the Bear Brook barrels. From here, Rebecca grabbed the end of the thread and began searching and intensified her efforts to uncover the identity of the murdered woman, her children, and her relationship with Ramson. As a result, she came across an old email from a girl searching for her half-sister. The message was from 1999. The girl explained in the letter that her sister was last seen with her mother and older sister in California in 1978, and she was 1 year old at the time. Her name is Sarah McQuartz, born in 1977, and her sister from another father, born in 1971, is named Mary. Their mother's name is Marlise Elizabeth Haney. The woman said in her letter that Marlise is also her mother, who disappeared with her 2 daughters in 1978 following a family dispute. For Rebecca, this information was the golden cornerstone of her research journey, and she was able to connect things as she reached a very important discovery, which is that Marlise left in 1978 with a man surnamed Rasmussen. This link was highly likely and not confirmed information, so she tried to send a message to the email in which she found the woman's message, but she did not receive a response. She did not give up, and used the email to search on Facebook and actually reached one of the accounts on the famous platform. At this point, she had only one glimmer of hope, to send a message to this account and receive a response from it, and to her great astonishment and joy, the response arrived within minutes. The same old letter had told Rebecca the same information about her mother and sister and told him that it had not reached them yet. She confirmed that her mother, Marlise, left with her daughters and a man surnamed Rasmussen. The name rang violently in Rebecca's mind, and at that moment she realized that she had already identified 3 of the 4 dead in the barrels of Bear Brook. After that, she immediately went to the police with the information she had and informed them of everything. At the same time, she was in contact with some members of the Marlise family. The police began conducting DNA analyses to confirm the identity of the victims, compared of course to family members. Within months, the identity of the 3 victims, Marlise and her 2 daughters, had already been confirmed, but a very important question remained that Rebecca, as well as the entire family, wanted to answer. Why and how did Rasmussen do it? With the available information, the police were able to create a scenario for the life and crimes of Rasmussen and the 4 victims, but due to the death of Rasmussen and the victims, there were some gaps in the story, and yet it somewhat fulfilled the purpose. Rasmussen was born in 1943 in Colorado, married in 1968 and had 4 children. In 1975, his wife left him and took the children with her after he was arrested on charges of aggravated assault against a person. During the police search, they discovered Rasmussen's terrible history of drug addiction and mental illness, and it seems that he was released from prison after a short time, but it is not known how he met Marlise and her 2 daughters, who left her family home after a family dispute in 1978. At this time Rasmussen was living there under the alias Bob Evans, and working as an electrician. At his workplace, it was very close to the Bear Brook woods where they found the bodies of Marlise and the children in barrels. The police assumed that they were killed in 1980, but why were they killed and why were they put in that way in the barrels? No one knows. The following year, 1981, Rasmussen began a new relationship with a girl named Denise Bowden, who was 23 years old. She gave birth to a daughter named Dawn, but Denise and her daughter completely disappeared in the same year. Specifically, on November 26, the last time Denise was seen was when she was going with Rasmussen and the child to have Thanksgiving dinner with her family. But in reality they never went to the family, and because Dennis's family knew they were facing financial problems and debts, they assumed they ran away. 4 years later, Rasmussen appeared again in California, but this time under the name Curtis Kimball. He had with him a little girl, about 4 years old. He said she was his daughter, and her name was Lisa. However, Lisa was only Dennis's daughter, but no one knows the fate of her mother, who did not appear again. Rasmussen abandoned Lisa as a child, and a family adopted her. After a while, specifically in 1987, the police arrested him on charges of driving a stolen car and sentenced him to 3 years in prison. However, He did not complete the term and was granted early release, after which he disappeared for more than a decade. In fact, the police made very great efforts and extensive research to trace Rasmussen's life, but during that period, the 10-year period, he completely fell out of the story, and the police were unable to find out anything about him in it. He appeared again in 1999 in California, this time also under the name Larry Vanner, and he was accompanied by a chemist named Johnson. And of course, as usual, after a short period of time, Johnson disappeared, but it seems that her family reported him, so the police investigated him and then discovered that his name was Curtis Kimball. They reviewed his file with them and that he left the child, Lisa, in the woods alone, before she was found and adopted. From here, doubts began to loom over him, so they searched his house and there they found a big surprise. Johnson's body was dismembered and placed under a large amount of cat litter. He was immediately convicted and tried in 2003 and sentenced to 15 years in prison after confessing to her murder. The police nicknamed Rasmussen the Chameleon because of the many characters he assumed. A DNA comparison proved that Lisa is Dawn and that the unidentified child killed in one of the barrels is Rasmussen's son, but they were unable to identify his mother. In cooperation between Rebecca and the police, the identity of the victims was confirmed. They were indeed Marlis and her two daughters, Sarah and Mary. After that, their family held a solemn funeral for them and they were properly buried in 2018. The case has not been closed because there are parties whose fate is still unknown. The mysterious period in his life, in which it was not known where he was or what he did, caused a great concern among the police that there might be victims of the Chameleon Man buried in unknown places. Thus, the mystery of the Bear Brook barrels has been solved, but the mystery of the Chameleon Man remains without a final solution yet. That he died and his secrets were buried with him in his grave. In the end, what do you think, dear viewer, about Rasmussen's volatile personality and whether he was suffering psychologically or not? If you liked the video, do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive all new updates.